And welcome back to Dark Side of the Ring Unheard, the podcast from the hit Vice TV series Dark Side of the Ring that takes you into unused archival footage from Darkside's hundreds of hours of interviews with many of pro wrestling's most beloved, its most feared, and its most memorable. I'm Jack Encarnacio. This is JP Sorrow from the Lapsed Fan Wrestling Podcast, proud to bring you Unheard, here with Darkside's executive producer, co-creator, Evan Husney. Evan, we're looking today, coming up Tuesday, on the next episode of Season 6 of Dark Side of the Ring. It's 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be a look at Billy Jack Haynes. And for the first time, you guys go behind bars.
Yes. I guess on whatever bucket list there is for this show, the thought that maybe someday we might do our jailhouse interview.
Wow.
Which is wild that this happened. And even wilder that Billy Jack Haynes himself had approached us to do this.
Wow.
So this is not something that, we're just cooking up and looking to do. It's something that sort of, came out of the woodwork and landed in our laps and was like, oh my God, Billy Jack wants to tell his story from behind bars. Okay, I guess we'll do that.
Billy Jack Haynes, was a go ahead.
No, that's it.
He was a WWF star, Oregon era star of the 80s, whose story and outlook grew, increasingly darker.
Yes.
Almost conspiratorial as the years went on, and drug addiction, other issues.
Someone who kind of slowly lost grip with maybe reality and started sort of inserting himself into many stories and tall tales and conspiracies and crimes, and then found himself committing a crime of his own, I guess. And
incarcerated as we speak here on allegations that he murdered his wife. So it's a dark story, and it's a crazy one. Perhaps particularly unsettling because, it's an instance of a wrestler who plays an ass kicker in the ring who suddenly shows almost like this hair trigger move to violence in real life. You always assume that maybe there's like this line for these guys, but some of them are,
razor thin,
ready to get very violent if the time comes. Of course, these are all allegations relative to Billy Jack Haynes, but man, so many wrestlers over the years that you hear about having these breaks,
awful.
And it's not anywhere near our next Unheard subject here. It's not anywhere near as extreme and lamentable a case. Okay, we need to make that perfectly clear.
And we also should say that, not to cut you off, but
please,
in regards to Billy Jack, he is awaiting trial for this.
Absolutely.
These are allegations.
Yes.
And I guess we're going to see what comes to light in terms of, what happened with regards to his wife. But, our episode aims at sort of getting in at how we got to this point.
I see.
And how we got there. Because there's a lot of, stories about Billy Jack that can't possibly be true. But then you start looking into things and you're like, well, there really was a connection to a criminal underground that's verifiable. And some things that, kind of separating the fact from fiction from his story is kind of what this examination of this episode really is all about. But as we're sitting right now in March 2025, or as we're recording this, he is awaiting the trial, and we'll see what the outcome of that is. But now segue to today's episode.
Indeed, yeah, and it's sort of a situation where it called to mind some of the testimonies of a longtime high flyer in the business, Too Cold Scorpio, Charles Skaggs. He was known as Flash Funk in the WWF as well. You may remember him there as well. He sat for Dark Side cameras for the Collision in Korea episode.
Flash Funk, I'm sorry.
Just think about the dancing pimp Flash Funk.
Flash!
You are so funky.
So funky.
He so was he ever? And
the Collision in Korea episode, though, too. Oh my God, that was my first introduction to him.
Was it?
Just in terms of meeting him and whatever, and he just, as we'll see, I'm sure today, his storytelling ability, his he is definitely just captures your attention with his the way he tells stories. He leaps into the camera and he gets right into it. And he's very entertaining, and as you're going to see, and tell some wild shit on camera.
Wild shit, and stories where he's not afraid to just snap on somebody. As he goes through life. And the Collision in Korea episode, of course, WCW's 1995 sojourn to North Korea, the only wrestling show there. And
wild.
He's got crazy stories about being Scorpio, even in a regime that could lock him away forever.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with that episode. I think it's the most attended wrestling event of all time. took place in North Korea, and the wrestlers don't have much in the way of pre-existing knowledge of sort of, the relationship between North Korea and the rest of the world. And so they don't think they should change their behavior in one iota from what they're weird show, but they get themselves into a lot of trouble in terms of not, having any sort of self-awareness and how they should be behaving in a place like North Korea.
Pro wrestlers unleashed, American pro wrestlers unleashed on North Korea. And it's a complicated circumstance, as we'll talk about for Cold Scorpio. He also sat for the season 5 episode of his former WCW tag team partner, Marcus Alexander Bagwell.
Oh, yeah.
As you heard on the Unheard episode on Buff Bagwell, they teamed together, and it was kind of like the first break Buff had in WCW being put together with Scorpio. But we'll get into it. They also had their share of showdowns, according to Scorpio, where it could have very quickly turned into some very serious violence. So we're going to start going back to the Collision in Korea episode. Anybody who saw that knows that part of the tour, he has an incredible fist fight with Hawk from the Legion of Doom Road Warriors on the bus. Basically fucks him up,
Well, I want to take this opportunity now
Yes,
that
please.
we're, here doing this is like, there is two different sides to this story.
Yes.
As you'll see in the episode, I think, Scorpio's taking all the liberties to make it seem as crazy and as wild and as nuts as it was. But,
Right.
Scott Norton, who at the time during his interview, I believe we did Scott's interview first, so he couldn't really respond to Scorpio's telling of the story. But Scott, I know, was very pissed off about Scorpio's telling of how much he
Really?
exaggerated.
Well, Scott was a Minnesota boy with Hawk.
Oh
and-
yeah, and and Scott's gonna stand by his boy and say, Hawk could have kicked the shit out of Scorpio's, so it's getting into that sort of thing. But just to underline here, now that we're here, I think that there is another side to this tall tale.
Sure.
But go ahead.
And this takes on a little bit extra gravity when you realize that Scorpio who just this year was jailed in his own right for a 3 a.m. stabbing of a man at a Missouri gas station, in what Scorpio claims was an act of self-defense.
There's something about a stabbing occurring at 3 a.m.
Yeah, that's
That's-
key.
I mean,
that's a key detail.
That just seems. I'm not making any judgment, but that just doesn't necessarily seem like self-defense to me.
He-
Or it
well,
could be
he-
3
he
a.m.
had
Could be.
no. He had a story where he was like
Alright.
basically working security for this gas station,
Okay,
and this guy
okay.
wouldn't listen when he was smoking a cigarette inside.
Oh.
Scorpio was like, "Want to take this outside?" And then the fight ensued. And then
Oh.
I don't think you want to take a cigarette outside at a gas station. That sounds like a dangerous idea.
the point is, Scorpio. no shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
Extinguish
Right.
it right there in the
yeah.
pool of gasoline. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I don't know about that.
The point is, Scorpio is a legit dangerous man. Okay, if that's what it comes down to. And here he talks about kind of the pretext for this fight with Hawk. He gets into it in the episode, but the problem was that Ric Flair at the time was not only one of the top stars in WCW. At the time Scorpio was fired from the organization in 1994, he also was making decisions behind the scenes. It's kind of like a booker of the company. He was kind of a boss there. And Scorpio here talks to us about how he felt like it was Ric Flair's fault that he got fired in 1994 earlier than when they did this Korea trip. And now they're on the Korea trip, and he's looking at Flair again, and Flair's getting kind of the white glove treatment around Korea, and the boys have to travel in this bus. Scorpio's not there because he's with WCW. He'd been fired. He's there because he's with
New Japan.
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
That's right.
Wow.
Which was the other half of the equation, and the real reason the show was able to go into Korea, because of the relations between New Japan's boss, Antonio Inoki, and the North Korean government at the time. And so it's kind of like a showdown for the first time since this all happened between Scorpio and Flair. And in this first clip, it's actually clip number 3. Scorpio is going to give us kind of like the background of why he was on the outs under that short-lived Ric Flair regime in WCW, and why it would have been such an accelerant to have him present at this point in time in Korea.
Okay, here we go.
Instead, I let it build up, build up, build up. So now it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and I'm still holding a grudge against somebody who I think was the cause of me getting fired, and talk shit about how you gonna find out why I'm too Cold Scorpio, because I'm gonna fuck your wife, I'm gonna fuck your daughter, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that.
Damn
you
right
know?
you are.
Oh, man.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
He would go off like this on people. The interview brings it out. He just starts out, "Fuck your daughter."
Jesus
What are you gonna do now?
Christ.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Saying this to Ric Flair.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
You're gonna find out why I'm too Cold Scorpio, because I'm gonna fuck your wife, I'm gonna fuck your daughter, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, because that's what Too Cold was about. If I tell you I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? That's just Too Cold. That's that MF part of it, which ain't the mother's finest, so.
Motherfucker.
But so at that time, you felt that Flair was responsible for your firing at the
I did truly believe yes.
Okay.
And still to this day, I don't give a damn what he say. I still will feel that truly that it was because of him. But in all honesty, was it because I was smoking too much? I only got popped 3 times positive for smoking weed.
That might have something to do with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't get popped for smoking crack, didn't do crack back then. Doing some fruit lines, but never got busted for it. But you knew I was doing it because everybody on the trip talking about the party in Scorpio's room, what we did, this and that. Boys is gonna talk. Nasty Boys talking. Buddy Lee Parker talking. With the office not realizing, hey, we're just drunk having a good time, not realizing that these guys are gonna try to come back to the States and hold it against me, and this is how we can get him out. If he tests positive for this, we can fire him, we can get rid of him. Which it didn't happen because I knew how long coke would stay in your system, yada yada yada. So all I got popped was for the weed.
You gotta know this stuff. Honestly, if you're gonna get around, you gotta know how long it stays in your system.
Absolutely.
How many days you have before you can allow yourself to be drug tested. I don't know. I dig it.
I dig it. Wow.
So yeah, he would later on say, because Eric Bischoff, the WCW boss, went on his podcast and said, we couldn't have a guy who would smoke weed like in 1994, like all over the place in public and working for the Turner organization and stuff.
But correct me. So I'm trying to understand. So he's talking about what I got here. He talked about getting fired.
Yes.
But then he talked about 7 years later.
Nah, that's wrong.
As if this show.
Yeah, he's not.
His timeline's off.
Oh, I was going to say, because this isn't like he gets fired and then he's right back here. It's like a year
7
later.
months.
Yeah, right,
maybe?
exactly.
I'm trying to be
7
charitable
months.
towards him. I think because he does this like almost every time he tells this story, this timeline. I think what he means is, years later he started talking about how much he hated Ric Flair.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Because clearly it was almost the same calendar year that this fight happened after he got fired from WCW.
Right. That's
yes,
right.
Absolutely. Yes.
bizarre.
I'm glad you pointed that out if it confused the listener. But that's wrestlers. They have the
I think also once he gets a little carried away, like once the emotions return of his vitriol, I think he kind of gets carried away with himself, as you can see, which makes for a great interview.
Yes,
right. Things escalate.
Things escalate.
The
quickly.
fire in his eyes.
I mean, seriously, get that blood boiling, and then all of a sudden the gems come out.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I mean, as he said, we got to be clear and fair to the man. He didn't do crack back then.
Back then.
Right.
And we're going to get into that as we go.
Do we know when he started doing crack?
We'll
can
get
kind
into it.
All right, great.
Stay tuned.
I need an exact date and time.
Absolutely. Welcome to Scorpio's world. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're here. And you remember hearing on the episode we did on Buff Bagwell here in Unheard about how Dusty Rhodes put together Scorpio and Buff Bagwell as a tag team, and they had some success as a tag team in WCW. And here in clip number 4, Scorpio is going to talk to us about a very similar, I guess you could say, confrontation that he had with Buff Bagwell. This one didn't come to blows, but it was kind of.
Did it come to blow though?
It's funny because in the episode, in the Buff episode, Scorpio definitely is. He gets some shots in, because he's like talking about, I don't know how that guy could have been, like a male stripper or a gigolo with a dick that small, whatever. And it's crazy the stuff that he was dropping in this interview.
Yeah.
But anyway,
there's a little bit going on there. So they were boarding a plane, Scorpio and Bagwell in this story, and Marcus Bagwell comes on board the plane with his wife. They're coming back on a trip from Germany, I think it is, and just the way, according to Scorpio, that Marcus Bagwell asked him to move out of his seat to make way for Buff's wife just rubbed him the wrong way, and you can imagine where it goes from there.
Boy.
Let's hit it.
And so that night, we getting ready to leave, getting ready to get on a plane, fly back to the States. And I could have sworn to God, Marcus came up and told me to move. You can go over and sit in my wife's seat. And so me and my wife can sit together and stuff like that. And I thought that he said something like, you can move and go over and sit. And I thought he lost his fucking mind. I jumped up, got in his face, started talking shit to him. Like, hey, fuck you, motherfucker. I don't know who the fuck you talking to and shit. You know what I'm saying? Tell me to move and shit because your wife's here and shit. Like, you can ask me politely to move. You know, and I remember me yelling on the airplane and stewards and them, shh, come knocking. I was like, nah, fuck that shit. You know what I'm saying? I'll fuck him up and shit. And I remember reaching over his shoulder. He swore to God I didn't do it. I remember his wife standing behind him, me reaching over his shoulder to talk to his wife, tell, you know, I'm gonna show you why they taught me too cold. I'm gonna fuck your wife. I remember telling him that to
Yes.
this day and shit. You know what I'm
Yes, this
saying?
is totally valid.
Oh,
He has absolutely every right to say it.
Jesus Christ.
But he swore up and down, I didn't do that shit. Oh, I was high on crack. Well, at that given point in time, I wasn't hooked on crack and wasn't smoking crack. I was just smoking weed and being drunk as fuck. You know what I'm saying? He was saying that he threatened to tell my wife that I was fucking around in Germany with somebody else. So that was really got me kind of more heated, you know, per se. You gonna talk shit about that after you do all the shit just because you brought your wife over here and you didn't give her no good dick like I gave my friend.
So you're gonna tell that I'm cheating on my wife because you can't give good dick to your wife. That's what he's
Hey,
saying.
what's the problem?
I'm still waiting for a reason for a fight.
He's just stating facts, you know.
Oh,
These are the things that
my
happen. He's just,
God.
you're not giving your wife good dick. She's gonna get dick from somebody else.
Jesus.
Hard.
Oh my God. All right, let's see how this.
My man.
Let's see how he gets out of this one.
That's what, you know, the stuff that was coming out of my mouth, you know. He made, I remember, I was going to whoop his ass. I was like, fuck that shit. And I was mad. Mad for days. You know what I'm saying?
So had you guys got in a fight that day, who would have won that fight?
Probably me.
Didn't see that one coming.
I didn't either. I thought he was. Oh, me for
shit.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it for a minute. I appreciate that kind of that's some
He gave
you know
him-
humility there.
There's some
I'm a
humility,
fan
yeah,
of
for
that.
sure, for sure.
Because it wouldn't have been a regular fight. Because I ain't going to fight you regularly. You know what I mean? I'm kind of one of them guys that, you know, I'm always going to have something. I'm always going to be strapped. You know what I mean? It might be a knife, and I...
Here we go. Here we go. Look, you want to fuck around? Here we go.
Right. Listen, he's too cold for a reason, right?
Jesus Christ.
He's got cold steel right next to his fucking hip.
Or something else.
Brother.
All right, here we go.
Gonna be strapped. You know what I mean? It might be a knife, an ice pick, you know what I'm saying? Might be my heat, you know what I'm saying? You just never know, but it's gonna never be a full fight. You know, I believe in bite your nose off, bite your ear off, you know what I'm saying? Rip body parts off if you can, you know that. You know, to me, that's a fight. You know, people don't fight nowadays. People just shoot nowadays. Nobody fights no more. So, you know what I mean? That's the scary thing about the world is half the folks don't know how to fight, and the ones who do fight don't want to fight no more.
Sad state of affairs.
Couldn't have said it better.
Listen, I understand, man. If we just knew how to fight, the world would be a better place.
It's just so remarkable in light of the current situation he finds himself in.
I know.
Always strapped. Always
It doesn't
having
look too good. Yeah.
Yeah,
but-
this is apparently not somebody you want to escalate a situation with. But
Yeah.
how did Scorpio get here? How did he get into flying the world as a professional wrestler and finding himself in brawls with the Legion of Doom on a bus? Well, he talks to us
And
about
threatening to fuck other men's wives.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
it. More than one.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That apparently was his go-to thing when
That's it.
tensions reached a boiling point. So it all started in an apartment complex that he had moved into. Okay, this is clip one where he talks to us about how one day, he saw some guys messing around in the backyard as pro wrestlers and drinking game for when every time he mentions getting high enough to notice something. Here's Scorpio talking about how he first discovered that maybe pro wrestling would be his thing.
All right. Take it away, Scorp.
Oh, I got my start in wrestling by a buddy of mine's. Michael Starr was his ring name, Jeff Gold. He was a manager of a complex that I had moved into, and he just happened to be backyard wrestling, doing some wrestling, told me he was a wrestler. I was like, man, you're a $185, soaking wet with a brick in your pocket. Come on, you ain't no wrestler. So, of course, one day I got drunk enough, high enough to go and watch him in the backyard, and I was like, wow, that's looked like real wrestling. It looked like a ring. I got up in there and started bouncing around. I had a little bit of skills in gymnastics and stuff like that, so I got in there and started bouncing around and turning through flips. So I was like, next thing you know, I was into the wrestling.
He was quite a high flyer, JP, wasn't he?
He absolutely was. He absolutely was. Definitely emphasis on high
Yeah, absolutely.
for sure.
Oh, he was
also,
great,
looking a little
though.
bit like Shelley Duvall there. Isn't he?
Is that your take? What did you think of his in-ring styling?
I don't actually really know. Like I knew he was impressive, and I know that he's done. But I for some reason just wasn't a fan of his stuff. Like I didn't know him well enough. I mean, I was excited when he came in as Flash Funk, believe it or not, because I'm like, oh, there's another guy from Turner that we got. Yeah, you know, I was excited about that. But
we being WWE,
we being
the
home team
we,
fans.
yeah.
Right. WWE being the home team. Yeah. But you know, it's someone who I would grow on to appreciate. But like when I was watching as a kid, you see him and I'm like, oh, okay, he's on now. All right.
I see.
Like kind of like Regal. William Regal was the same way with me. Where
I
watch him when I was a kid and I'm like, can we just fucking move on? But now I watch him and I'm like, oh, he's like, it's a whole different story. I understand what he was doing more, and you know, I can see his character through his work. And same thing with Scorpio. I can kind of see it in a different light that I enjoy watching him now, but I didn't.
So you didn't see him in ECW much growing up?
Oh hell no, I didn't watch any. Okay. I can say I watched zero ECW.
Yeah,
I just didn't have. I just didn't know where to find it.
That's a key
great.
point. Yeah, he did get a lot of street cred sort of after WCW.
Totally.
And getting fired, going over to ECW.
Yeah.
What were you expecting sitting down with him for this interview?
Well, I mean, you know, I remember when we were doing that. I think that was the Collision in Korea interview. We were just trying to find anybody who was there that could speak about it. I mean, insanely, we actually talked to Inoki. He's in the episode.
Amazing.
You know, well, we got to interview him. It was through Zoom. We had a crew in Japan that was facilitating it for us, but you know, I'm sitting and you know, Inoki's looking at me and I'm looking at Inoki during the interview, and it was crazy experience. But I remember I was just trying to find anybody, and the Steiners turned us down, and you know, a bunch of other people who were there turned us down. And so just going down the list, and Scorpio, it'd be great, you know, and he's a hell of a storyteller, and he's a hell of a, you know, he has a presence on camera, you know, and he could tell some stories, and he did not disappoint, you know, throughout any of the times we've had him on the show. He winds up always kind of stealing the show with just some crazy ass lines that he, you know, drops in the shows. So, but yeah, I just remember having a big smile on my face during this entire interview. Because
that's the thing. He's like, you know, as quick to escalate as he might be. He's a fun guy to be around.
Yeah.
Seems like it. Totally seems like
it.
Yeah. Not intimidating to an outsider.
No. He was just very, very, very funny, you know, very irreverent, and just his way of speaking and it's hilarious, you know.
You mentioned Scott Steiner, and it's interesting. I recently saw a clip that he did in an interview where he said that he kind of invented the 450 splash.
I saw that today.
And he
wait, Scott Steiner said this?
Yeah, because there's a clip of him just breaking into the business, doing it off the top in a very small arena setting.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's like 87, I think. But that's not where Too Cold Scorpio told us he learned the 450 splash. And Scorpio was one of the first guys that I personally ever saw do it, and definitely one of the earliest guys to do it on a consistent basis. It's like a finishing move as opposed to like a one-off thing. Mm-hmm. And here in clip number 2, he talks about how, you know, with those kind of like rough beginnings of like this backyard wrestling setup and getting around and bouncing around and trying to put his gymnastics to work, he developed like an entrance where he would flip into the ring. And that's where the 450 came from Scorpio. So here, when you think Scorpio, you think top rope aerial offense.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Here's where the 450 splash came from.
Actually, I had developed the 450 prior to me getting the opportunity to go to Japan. A friend of mine's, Bill and Kat, he was a biker guy. She was a biker chick, and she was a lady wrestler as well. Stray Cat. So we had got together, and he decided he was going to build a ring. We got tired of having to go all the way over to the gym and train when they want us to train and stuff like that. So we went to Los Alamos, you know, down south of Colorado, where his dad lived, and we collected all the metal and steel, and he went down there and welded, and we put a ring together, a 20 by 20 ring, steel cables, put the ropes on it, the whole 9 yards, made our own turnbuckles, loaded up on a homemade trailer, brought it back to Denver, set it up in the yard, so we had the access to practice all the time. So we out there smoking, decided we're going to go out and practice, so we bring out the big dummy, and I was like, man, I'm going to work on this new move, do something off the top. And my interest was I would run down and jump on the top of the ring, climb up to the top rope, and cut a front flip, land on my feet, start dancing. That was my interest. So I was trying to practice my entrance and, you know, make sure I was nailing it every time. Got out there and over-rotated, landed on the dummy, did a splash. I was like, oh, my God. And, you know, I was like, oh, I just did a 450. I thought I was hurt, got up. I was like, man, that's my new finish. Bring the dummy, bring the dummy. So I did it a few more times, and it was on point. It was on point every time. After that, okay, it became a new move.
Oh.
He over-rotated, supposed
Yep.
to land on his feet,
Yep.
and he landed on his stomach, and that's sometimes the mother of invention in
All it
wrestling.
takes, exactly. Listen, those kind of mistakes, they change the world.
Championship wrestling.
And when he's saying get the dummy, it's just something to practice on, I
Yeah,
guess. Or
yeah.
like
You jump off the top and land on the
I
dummy.
was talking
on the
about just
dummy.
one of his friends.
To mimic the ring positioning of an opponent. So
Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
where
that's
to
it.
go.
I mean, that's also part of it too. Is like you gotta know how. I mean, in a move like that where there's you kind of lose a lot of control once you jump in the air. You have to know how far your arms are going to be, where your knees are going to be, so that you're not hitting somebody. I mean, that's a lot of a lot of those all of those aerial moves. I'll just put it right there. All of them require so much precision and understanding of just how your own strength, what you need to put into it. It's wild. It's wild.
In the very few times that I've been
And not hurt somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
And
One
not
thing when
hurt somebody.
it's a
That's
dummy,
the key.
yeah.
For
That's
sure.
the key.
No,
Otherwise,
totally.
you are a dummy if you get hurt.
Right. In the very few times I've been in a ring, I mean, you know, we have the ring set up, you know, for the reenactments, and there's been other times where we've been close to one, and every time, or there's been a few times where I've just like climbed to the top turnbuckle, and just to see, you know, what that's like, and just it's so fucking crazy to imagine that people will jump off this thing, because you know, most marks, you know, fans don't know that fucking plywood base of the ring, I mean, that it just feels like landing on slats of wood. There's no give.
It's
There's
not
no
fun. It's not
there's
fun.
no it's really, it's not what you imagine it is as a fan and what you know growing up. So, but just the fact of someone coming off the turnbuckle full force like that, I can't even imagine getting used to that.
I mean, because I mean, you're putting
Feels so high up.
Yeah, because I mean, you kind of have to land. You know, I'm also thinking about like Savage's elbow as being one, because his was very different because he didn't have it up here; he had it low.
Yeah.
You know, and the idea that you also have to land, like your body has to land in a precise location so that you can not be dropping the thing. Like you have to also protect yourself and the other person.
Totally.
And it's really, I mean, it's wild. I mean, I only can tell you from even just dropping an elbow on the ground.
Yeah,
It's like you have to have
I know.
exact precision, and it's wild.
And there's also this thing too, where not to, you know, bog down, but when you know, you are landing in a certain position, like landing slightly wrong almost sends this like reverberation through your body. Like through your legs, like if you land on your legs in a weird way, like it can fuck you up. And it's just, so anytime, like when I was standing on that top turnbuckle, it contextualized every single top rope maneuver I'd ever seen, because it's just the thought of jumping off that thing onto this insanely hard surface, or even on the outside too. It's just fucking, it's crazy. I
mean, we did a whole, sorry to harp on this again, but like we did a whole thing on when I did the Renaissance Rumble the first time, we learned how to drop an elbow, just a standing elbow drop.
Yeah.
And it was like if you didn't land, like you need to protect yourself by kind of landing on your thigh and like you didn't want to land on your hip.
No.
But you want to land on your thigh.
Yeah.
So that not only are you protecting yourself, but you're also helping make the sound.
Yeah.
And you want to be like right next to the person's shoulder. Like it was.
Yeah, it's very precise.
It's what I mean. Yeah. It's crazy that the kind of precision they need to.
And I ask you to consider it, climbing on the top rope, looking down, and being asked to do 450-degree spin and land.
I won't do it.
No.
Can you imagine?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because again, like the moment you leave your feet, you're out of control.
Yeah.
You know, like to be able to know. I mean, I'm sure that there is you feel your body. You know.
Yeah,
when you need to be.
If you're a gymnast, you get.
But it's like to know, like, okay, when I get to here, I got to make sure that I'm, you know, looking so I can get my arms down, my knees down, so that I'm not actually putting my chest on this person's chest and crushing them to death.
And he would do a backflip into a leg drop. Scorpio did such amazing aerial
crazy stuff. Yeah.
So he goes to the New Japan Dojo, where it's a very serious training regime, the way they train wrestlers over there. If you come out of there, you really know how to have a great match. And here in clip 6, he's going to talk to us about going to Korea with New Japan. And as the Dark Side of the Ring episode talked about kind of the unique atmosphere of paranoia that you get when being there in North Korea, you know, your phone calls in the hotel are being listened to. You can't leave the hotel room without a chauffeur watching every single.
Everyone's following you.
Yes.
Keeping there's eyes on you at all times.
Right. A chauffeur just as much like a chaperone, I meant to say. And so, you know, there was stuff left on the cutting room floor from that episode about the matches themselves that actually happened in the ring during Collision in Korea.
In front of audiences who had no fucking idea what they were seeing.
What wrestling was and felt compelled to clap and applause, almost like a government mandate almost to be there. Interesting. It's such a one-of-a-kind wrestling crowd if you watch and listen to the reactions as we did. You know, it's Yep. So Scorpio is great for this because he wrestles both nights of the 2-night Collision in Korea event. He wrestles a Japanese junior heavyweight standout by the name of Shinjiro Otani on night 1, and that match ends in a very confusing and head-scratching way where suddenly Otani rolls out of the ring and leaves without a decisive pinfall. We're going to get into why. And then in night 2, he wrestles Chris Benoit on this show. So here on clip 6 is him talking about the match with Otani and what happens when you're in the ring with Scorpio and you're not registering his offense.
Oh, boy.
If he doesn't think you're respecting that his blows are landing with sufficient pop, this might be what happens to you.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
The first night was with Shin Altany, which was one of the top guys now with top Japanese group.
Sounds like
0-1.
you're saying Shane Altany.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think it's instead of we would say Otani, but I think it's Otani.
But it sounds like it's Shane Altany.
He says Shane. Yeah. Or Shin.
Top Japanese group. 0-1. He was a New Japan dojo brother, came in the dojo, trained real hard, learned quick, learned fast, became one of the top guys. And he was one of the guys that I had my first match with. And he was so pumped up, and I was so pumped up that I had hit him with a thrust kick. He didn't go down. He didn't take a bump. You know, I thought that he was too pumped up. Hit him with a drop kick, took a bump, got up a little quick. So when I slammed him and hit him with...
We can pause. That can be very easily perceived as a sign of disrespect in the wrestling ring.
Too pumped up Scorpio?
Yeah. If you hit a guy with a drop kick and he doesn't act like it was devastating, that's when a wrestler kind of has license to start hitting you for real. So you respect him and register him because you start to make him look bad if you don't actually go down.
Of course. You don't sell the offense, and then it's like, what
are we doing here?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I thought that he was too pumped up, hit him with a drop kick, took a bump, got up a little quick. So when I slammed him and hit him with that spinning leg drop and busted everything in his face, busted the over under both eyes and busted his nose, and blood was just going everywhere, the people realized how much wrestling was really real. And at the same time, he was knocked out, lackadaisical, rolled out of the ring. They called the match off. I thought we could have had a way better match. You know, sorry that I had broke his face and his nose, and still to this day, 2020, if I ever run into him, he will not ever let me forget on how I broke both his over and his nose, and he's probably got a receipt laying for me someplace in his back pocket.
Damn right.
So,
damn right, he's got a receipt.
A receipt being a wrestling term for "I'll get you back."
There's also something else too that made me think of. So when you do a move like that too, I mean, obviously they're way more trained than my two in-ring experience, times in the ring. But when you do a move like that, the selling also gives you a breather as the person who did the move.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the guys that I wrestled, like he kind of no-sold some stuff, and I'm like, dude, I'm supposed to take this time so I can breathe for a moment.
I can't get right back on you because I'll run out of gas.
Right, exactly. And so it's like that also is frustrating because you need that moment, but then you got to kind of get back on the guy, and it sucks.
Scorpio busts Otani's face in North Korea. He busts Hawk's face in the bus.
Just busting everybody up.
Busting some wives, too.
Yeah.
And well, we don't talk about that. But so there's like this overhang of paranoia, and it carries into Scorpio's mentality too. When he gets in the ring, this is clip 5, night 2, against Chris Benoit, the infamous Chris Benoit. There's a moment in the match because Benoit was, flawless in the ring. Mm-hmm. Like if something went wrong in a Chris Benoit match, it was very rare, and it was probably the other guy's fault.
I mean, you also probably didn't notice it because Benoit covered it up.
He was so good at
He's Pegasus Kid here at this point, wasn't he?
Maybe just right after.
Yeah, it was kind of after the Pegasus run. He was going by
Pegasus
Chris
Kid.
Benoit, but it's
was?
yeah,
Okay.
around that time. He was in New Japan for the most part. He was on the New Japan side more
Yeah.
so than the WCW side.
Not quite WCW yet.
Yeah.
He did wrestle as Pegasus Kid
Yeah.
during this run. You're right.
Okay.
But when he was in the States, he would be Chris Benoit.
Right.
So he's wrestling Benoit, and Scorpio does one of his signature high flying flips. He does a moonsault backflip off the top rope to the arena floor, and wouldn't you know it, Chris Benoit kind of fails to catch him, which is a big no-no because you can get really, he's soaring
Yeah.
to the sky.
Totally fucked up.
And just this gives you, I think, an insight into Scorpio. He almost can't believe that Benoit messed it up by mistake. He's thinking he did this because I fucked up his boy Hawk earlier on the tour.
Is Hawk Chris Benoit's
Yeah,
boy?
Benoit was definitely want to be friends with everybody, which is so ironic considering how it ended for him.
Yeah.
But yes, so this is a glimpse into like how quickly the paranoia can kick in for someone like Scorpio here in clip 5.
It looks like it right here.
No shit, right?
Oh shit. Okay, here we go.
He has never dropped me in none of my matches, nowhere we work, no anything. And right away, my mind started going crazy. We have this match, I do this big spot, I'm not hurt, we get up, we go in, we finish the match, boom, Chris finished me off, 1, 2, 3. Match is great, but I'm having second thoughts. I'm going back to myself and I'm talking shit to myself. And I'm wondering, why the hell did he drop me? Chris, you ain't never dropped, why did you drop me? So now I'm thinking he did it on purpose because he's mad at me because I beat the shit out of Hawk. So now I'm thinking, okay, because he kept saying, I'm friends with you, I'm friends with Hawk. Chris was the one that kept saying, you guys need to talk, you guys need to talk, you guys have to squash this, you guys need to talk, y'all need to settle this. So Chris was the one every night telling me, no, man, forget about, trying to kill him and this, that y'all need to talk, y'all need to talk. So Chris,
Yeah, because Scorpio legitimately was going to murder Hawk in North Korea. So we would have, that's how he was talking anyway.
He never would have come home.
Yeah,
They would
no.
have incarcerated him over there, and you never would have saw him again.
They probably would have kept all of them over there. So yeah, crazy stuff.
About trying to kill him and this, that y'all need to talk, y'all need to talk. So Chris was the one that was always telling me this. So when I did that match and he dropped me, because he goes, I'm friends with you, I'm friends with Hawk, I'm friends with everybody. Chris was just one of those type of guys. He was just friends with everybody. So at that point I was just highly upset and mad, thinking Chris dropped me on purpose because I fucked up his buddy. So I had to ask him, bro, what happened? Did you drop me, man? Because you was mad at this and that. And he goes, nah, bro. He goes, you just jumped so high, went so far over that I couldn't reach you, and all I can get to you was just my arms. But it was enough to stop me from getting hurt.
So ultimately, a false alarm, Scorpio concluded.
He wasn't Pegasus Kid, he was Wild Pegasus.
Wild
for that
Pegasus.
match.
There you go.
There we go.
There
Okay,
you go.
Wild
Pegasus.
Pegasus. Thank you very
There you go.
much. Wild Pegasus there against Too Cold Scorpio. And yeah, so he seemed satisfied with the answer. It isn't like he went into talking about how he was going to fuck Benoit's wife or anything like that.
Oh my god.
It didn't get to that point. But later on, he goes to WWF. We mentioned his Flash Funk in 1996. And over time, he comes back during the Attitude Era as Too Cold Scorpio. And here in clip 7, he's going to take us back to another season of Dark Side of the Ring and another episode, The Brawl for All.
Yes.
Had a lot of fun talking about this one over the years. This was a tournament in 1998 of real fighting. They put the wrestlers in the ring on WWF with boxing gloves on, and they could punch each other for real.
One of the most perplexing creative ideas ever in wrestling, I think. Yeah. The idea of, well, what would happen if the wrestlers fought for real? But then that's obviously making the statement that none of this other shit is real.
Right. What does that mean for the rest of the show?
Exactly.
It's the dumbest thing ever. And I remember watching it as it happened on Raw when it was happening in 1998 or whatever it was. 98 to 99. And just being confused because they didn't really explain it that well. Yeah. And it was like, what is this? And it was so bad. And it was an early idea for an episode for us. And I'm so glad we committed to it because I really, really love this episode. It's one of my favorites in terms of, I think it's kind of one of the, it kind of best represents the exploitation of wrestlers in such a dark and disturbing way, and how expendable they are to the corporation or to the promotion at the time, and just like, oh, it's so disturbing to watch. And I remember, we didn't think of Scorpio for the episode during season 2 because I believe he lost in his first round.
Yeah,
and so we kind of
Godfather.
Yeah, to The Godfather. And so we wanted to kind of, in order for the stakes of, the episode, we wanted to interview first and foremost. We only had, so much time and / budget at the time to interview so many people back then, but we wanted to maximize our subjects, and it was the people that had gone on to progress through the tournament, so, it'd be better for the story. So we had this thought as we were going through, doing the subsequent seasons of the show, that if we missed somebody on the first time around, we would go back and ask them about something, and maybe, hey, we could use it for something at some point. So here we are.
Got the chance to ask him about the Brawl for All.
Yeah.
And so he was in the tournament. He was plugged in late because Dan Severn, I think it was, he'll talk about it, pulls out.
Yeah, because Dan
was
Severn
taken out.
Yeah, well, Dan Severn also was, obviously a real UFC legit fighter, and there was a thought that, well, he's going to be the, the ringer, for this whole thing, or one of the ringers for this thing.
In Steve Williams, right?
And Steve Williams was another ringer.
It's like you said, dumb idea.
Well, these wrestlers, for those that don't know, they take all this real punishment, including some that have injuries that almost end their career.
Yes.
And it looks like shit. It doesn't even, it's not even entertaining.
Right.
These guys don't know how to actually fight in a
That's the thing.
like
it also exposes them. Exposes them as people who don't actually know how to fight. They're not actually tough.
Yeah,
they're tough, but they don't know how to
Some of them, but not all of them. Like,
not all of them.
You're not tough enough to take a punch. Like sometimes, obviously, you hit somebody in the right place, you're going to go down anyway. But these guys aren't real fighters. They're fake fighters.
Yeah,
yeah. And then there's so much to this. We could go on and on about it.
I know.
But So sorry.
But yeah, Scorpio is here, ready to compete. And he's going to get ready for a real fight in a way only Scorpio can.
Yeah.
There's not much of a training regime here, folks. Let's listen into clip 7 as he describes being thrust into a real fight and just not giving a fuck.
And he's very excited about it.
He loves being asked about the Brawl for All, doesn't he? Which he calls, by the way, just so you don't get confused, he calls it Fall Brawl 100
Oh, I remember that. He
Fall Brawl All or something?
Yeah, the Fall for Brawl.
The Fall for Brawl.
For Brawl. Oh
Farfanugan.
He's conflating the Fall Brawl and the Brawl for All.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Well, it did start in the fall, too.
Yeah, the Fall for Brawl. Okay, here we go. I remember this.
You have to tell me, what was your experience with the Brawl for All?
Shoot, my Brawl for All was like, man, I was an opportunity to make some money. I want in. I can hold my own. I don't give a damn who's in it. I don't have nothing to lose. They had all the brackets set. I might have seen my name nowhere in there. At that point in time, I was still on that Jenny Craig diet.
What?
Hold on, get ready.
What?
That Jenny Craig diet, you ready?
The Jenny Craig diet. Yeah, okay, here we go.
So I had been up for 2 or 3 days, cracking out, smoking out,
Wait, does that
Jenny
mean that
Craig
he's
crack
doing the
diet?
Jenny? Oh,
Crack
So
diet?
it's the Jenny Craig crack diet. Is that what he says?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's not taking in nutrients to gain weight. Let's put it
Okay, so he's not.
He's worried about ingesting other things.
He's
Okay,
taking
so
in
he's not-
non-nutrients to get high.
If you were getting ready to have a real fight on national television for the first time in your life, would you stay up for 2 days cracking out, smoking out? He would. That's Scorpio.
I'll tell you, he probably didn't feel anything when he was in there.
Well,
I
wasn't sure if he was doing the Jenny Craig meals and the crack.
Maybe he might have been doing both.
Okay, and he's not the only one who prepped with illicit substances. Godfather got really fucking stoned.
Yes,
got
he did.
ripped before his match.
Listen, if there's any time to do it prior to a match, like any other sport, any other combat sport, you never obviously want to do that. But this shit, you definitely want to do it. You want to be as numb as possible.
Yeah, right.
Because this shit is stupid.
Okay, here we go.
At that point in time, I was still on that Jenny Craig diet. So I had been up for 2 or 3 days, cracking out, smoking out.
It's amazing.
This guy's awesome.
It's incredible. Okay, here we go.
Doing my thing, showing up to the show, rocking and rolling, kicking ass, taking names. And then all of a sudden, I want to say one of the top guys, shoot wrestlers, might have backed out. It wasn't Ken Shamrock, but Dan Severn. I want to say Dan Severn had backed out. After talking to Ron and a few other guys, like, man, why are you trying to go out there? You made a name for yourself already, and now you want to go out there and kill yourself in a fall for brawl that doesn't really mean shit. And if you're a badass and you already made a name for yourself, just think what would happen if you was to go out in a fall for brawl, get your ass knocked out as a top name, on how that would make you look in the wrestling business. A lot of guys didn't think that far ahead.
Nope.
Before they got into it, and realized after they got the shit knocked out of them and got knocked out that it made them look worse as being a tough guy and having a belt in the WWF, but then yet you got knocked out in the fall brawl, so maybe you ain't as tough as bad as you think you are. And I think, overall the fall brawl was about egos, trips, and what the office actually wanted to see on who really is the badass. You got all these people talking about they the badass, this, that. Let's really see. Vince is the type of guy that, he likes to see shit like that. You know what I mean? You want to be a badass, I like to see shit like that, but at the same time, don't really need it. So, but for me, I was just happy to be in it.
Oh, okay.
And so who was his first round opponent?
Godfather.
Oh, it was Godfather.
And he loses.
And he loses. Okay. But now imagine the brackets are what they are, right? There could have been a path for it to be, this is a legitimate shoot fight. We could have gotten Hawk and Scorpio.
Yes.
Wow.
We could have.
So,
he was in it.
So what would
That's wild.
What would have happened?
Yeah. And that's a huge
wild
segue
thought.
because backstage, as we hit clip 8 here.
Okay.
Backstage at WWF with the Brawl for All simmering, about to go down.
I'm sorry. The what?
The fall for Brawl.
The fall
for
for
Brawl.
Brawl.
Thank you.
Fall for
Okay,
Brawl.
good.
The falafel brawl.
Oh, now we're talking.
Ooh, yum.
Now we're talking.
With
Yum. I'm on the
Tabbouleh.
street right now.
His old nemesis, Hawk, is backstage.
Okay.
And Two Cold Scorpios now in the same company as Hawk once again. And he's taping up. He's ready to go.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
And, we know Hawk's downfall was chronicled on season 2 of
Yes,
Dark Side of the
yes.
Ring and the Road Warriors episode. We did an episode on Animal last year on Unheard.
That's right.
And when Hawk piped up in the locker room to The Undertaker, of all people, about Scorpio revisiting old issues, it turns out Scorpio was ready to go all over again.
Oh, God, Scorp. Settle down. Okay, here we go.
And then he gets back to WWF. I get up there, he's up there, and he goes to Taker. Hey, Taker, Scorpio could take a punch. I say, yo, Hawk, if everybody don't know about the ass whooping you took, they don't need to know about it now. You need to leave it alone before you get another ass whooping. And that's when Undertaker said, yo, man, just leave him alone, just leave him alone. He's on the path of self-destruction himself. Rest in peace. Shortly after that, man, he was gone.
That's a little smile at the end.
Shortly out. I mean, it was a couple of years, wasn't it?
Couple
Yeah,
of
it was,
years.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, when you look back at the transcripts of that interview, there's so much. Like Scorpio is just milking that I beat up Hawk story for as much mileage as he can take on that. And I think that's what really pissed off Scott Norton and, Hawk's other friends, was because, I'm sure that there's so much liberties taken, with Scorpio as far as the details of that fight. And I'm sure maybe, in terms of what happened, because Scorpio made it sound like he ripped, his head off and his eyeballs out, ate him and did this, threw him and smoked him. And
That's what he told me.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah. But man, he wouldn't let it go in that interview. Anyway.
Kind of remarkable that Scorpio made it through the smoke, isn't it? But it seems like more chapters.
Many ways.
Yeah.
Made it through the smoke.
Yes. But it definitely seems like there's more chapters to be written here as it regards Two Cold Scorpio.
Definitely.
That's going to do it this week for us on Unheard. Remember, Dark Side of the Ring Season 6 resumes on Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Vice TV, with a look at the harrowing story of Billy Jack Haynes. And do join us next week on Unheard, because we're going to get to know a master of evil psychology in the wrestling business who was there for seminal moments du jour, Kevin Sullivan.
Ooh.
We'll see you next time
Yes.
on Unheard.
All right. See you later, everybody.